Somehow, my daughters fell in love with Formula One. I don't know how or why, but I'm not arguing. They may not know wheel, but does anyone?
Hi, and welcome to We Don't Know We All Have Fun. I'm Anne.
And I'm Grace. We're two sisters who fell in love with Formula One, and now we're forced to listen to the Dutch national anthem every single week.
I may have started us off on the wrong foot by trying to play the Supermax song for Grace.
I honestly wish that they were playing the Supermax song instead of the Dutch national anthem. No. I'm like, it's too much. It's too much. It's too much. Okay, my favorite part of the podium ceremony, though, was the champagne not foaming because it's not champagne.
The not champagne.
Yes. And Lando's like, what's going on? I'm like, don't they have this at other races? Like, they don't have alcohol in Saudi Arabia, but whatever they're using in Qatar is not as good.
Yeah, for real. I mean, I will admit, I may have skipped forward through some of the anthems.
Wow, this is shocking. I would never.
Really? From the woman who said that she's going to watch the race in 30.
I didn't. I watched the whole thing. I did not watch qualifying though. So, and I heard that was like really exciting. So give me the quick and dirty.
I'm trying to remember.
I believe the hot take was track limits.
I watched part of qualifying during study hall.
Oh my gosh. I saw you sent a picture, didn't you?
Yeah.
That was cute. Okay.
I only have 5 students in there, and a few of them like watching Formula One, and none of them had anything to work on Friday. So we had a good time. But that meant I would couldn't fully hear everything that was going on. And then I watched the rest of it. Did I watch the rest of it later? I don't remember. It was a busy weekend. But then I watched sprint qualifying at Mom and Dad's, which was fun. And then I watched the sprint race with Leon sitting next to me on the couch.
That's cute.
He decided his favorite car was the orange car.
Smart kid.
Yep. Very smart kid.
It seemed like Lando had a hard weekend of qualifying.
Yes. He thinks that he had a really bad weekend and a hard weekend overall.
I think that's like a fair, like he made mistakes. So I think it's okay to be like critical when you're like, I legitimately could have done better, but I like went over track limits and like got my time deleted. Like, no, yes, then I too would be like, that is incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, I think every time I saw him like talking and acting kind of frustrated, like he hasn't done well enough, to me speaks of both his character of never being fully satisfied with anything, and also shows how like insane the progress of the McLaren has been throughout the year. Of like, right? He says he's having a horrible weekend, and what did he finish in the sprint? Did he finish third?
I think he did. Yeah, I think it was.
He patched George on the last lap, and then he's finished third again in the race. Like, how is that a bad weekend for McLaren now?
Yeah, no, I think he's saying like it's good for McLaren, but he knows he could do better, which is like a fair. And I think I sent a video to the Instagram group chat where of like Lando back in his early McLaren days where he's saying like, I didn't do anything, I didn't help. And Carlos is like, no, this is a team where you did help. This is a good job. But he's obviously like hyper critical. And I think he's probably even worse because his teammate is a rookie and he literally won the sprint and he still hasn't won, like Lando hasn't won a race yet.
Yeah.
Which I have to say, I think that's a much more. I think he keeps getting compared to Nico Hulkenberg, but like And not that I think Nico is like a good driver for what he is, obviously, and like had probably more like he was unlucky in his career moves, but extremely talented as a driver. And I mean, Lando maybe is going to end up in that same boat, but he's still so young. He still has time to win his first race. So I don't feel like it's the same at all. Like, look at how many podiums Lando has. Like, there are plenty of good drivers who took years to get their first win.
Yeah, 100%. And Lando is so young.
Yeah.
That, like, I don't think that those comparisons are.
I'm not
really
here
fair.
for the Lando hate from anyone, including Lando. No.
I will say the video of Carlos and Lando as teammates. Carlos is such a just like sweet older brother to Lando. It's very cute.
Yeah, I think that I almost feel like Lando needs to learn how to embrace that energy with Oscar. Not that I feel like he's been like quite competitive with him or anything, but like I think he would feel happier or like maybe more like I think it's obvious that he feels competitive with him in a way where he's like, if Oscar can get this out of the car, I definitely should be able to, which makes sense. But I think if he had like that internal confidence of like, I know I can get that out of the car. I made a mistake, but I could do what Oscar's doing right now. I need to like really center and focus on my own drive. I actually feel like he would benefit himself more.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Which, I mean, to be fair, when Lando started McLaren, both him and Carlos were coming in as new to McLaren, even if they weren't new to Formula One. And so that probably helped them be like, oh, we're both learning this team together. And we're both kind of figuring out what we're doing together. Whereas Oscar is walking into Lando's team. But I do agree that, like, yeah, I don't think Lando needs to worry about Oscar showing him up. Lando just needs to do the best that he can.
Yeah, I would say I think when Lando and Carlos were at McLaren, like Lando was very like they were like Lando is the future of our team. We're bringing in Carlos to like teach him how to be a driver because he's been in F1.
Yeah.
And so I think that like set up a good dynamic to start with. And it's probably harder to have the like Lando Oscar dynamic where it's like, obviously they value youth, like Lando's probably sitting there thinking like, wait, am I aging out of here?
Which is crazy because he's what, 23?
Yeah, it's wild. And then wasn't there, I read something that like someone confirmed that Lando was going to Red Bull. That was definitely on social media, but that's like, what's happening, you know?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about that today, and I had this realization that like I feel like the only reason Red Bull hasn't dropped Checo because they now have 3 clearly good drivers at AlphaTauri is that they want the second place in the drivers' championship.
Yeah.
And the like the points don't transfer over whoever the new second driver at Red Bull is. So like Checo keeps those points. So
You think they do? Well, I think yes.
They've never had it before. They've never had a 1-2 in the drivers' championship before. And so I think they really want that. And
they're definitely at risk.
I know. But I mean, they don't have any other option that would make it more likely that they would get it.
No, I agree.
And so I mean, they've already secured the constructors. They've already secured the drivers. Like, what do they have to lose by letting Checo
triple
finish
crown?
Here's my
yeah, let's hear.
Crazy conspiracy theory. Not really conspiracy theory. Here's my hot take. Williams is not going to announce their driver for next year until after the season ends. If Danny has a good 5 races, at the end of the season, Red Bull is going to announce Danny, Williams is then going to announce Checo to replace Logan Sargent.
That's insane, but I love it. It's fully unhinged.
But also, it could totally happen.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's about as hinged as Sarah texting the group saying she thinks Danny's gonna do the Austin Grand Prix for Red Bull. Which
it's less unhinged than that, in my opinion.
I honestly feel like if Checo makes it to the end of the season, I personally feel like it's almost less likely they're gonna drop him.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think there's something about like if he finishes out the season and he doesn't just if he doesn't lose second in the constructors, I think they'll be like, well, he worked fine. Let's slowly develop someone over at Alpha Tauri next season, and then we can pull him up. And then I think he'll leave after that. Now, I hope I'm wrong because that's not very exciting. But I just think like if he makes it through the season, I feel like Red Bull's just going to be like, well, we already paid for it. It went fine. We can drop him halfway through next season.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know.
I don't know either. That's just my personal guess.
Man, it is crazy that we have 6 races left and Red Bull has secured both championships already.
Right? What is happening? Yeah, we were talking before the episode. A friend texted me and said they had been listening to the episode where we guess when Max is gonna cinch the championship. And it was like, actually, Anne guessed Austin. And I guessed the race before, the race before Austin. And then I was like, no, Singapore. So I'm unhinged.
Close. But at least we were both equally wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Let's really dig into the race for a minute though, because I watched the sprint. Sprint was fun. Yay for Oscar. Hot take.
Yay for Oscar.
I really felt so bad for him when it was like, Max, drive your car onto the thing, Max. Oh, let's talk to Max. Get all the people out here. I was like, poor Oscar just won a race. He's a freaking rookie. And we're like, well, what about Max? Max hasn't gotten enough accolades. He's literally won like almost every race this season. Did he need another? I'm sorry.
And it was Max that they had drive his car into the special podium. And
I know. I was so
world
mad.
Champion behind him.
I was like, are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. The way it should be is they should go into the driver's debrief room or the cool down room. And then they should be like, Max, did you know that you won the world championship? But yeah, what a trip. And did Checo crash in that race? And that's why Max won. And that was also like, what a bummer.
Right. Yeah. So, it was Esteban crashed into Checo and Hulkenberg is what I would say. Okay. I mean, if you watch the tapes of it Esteban was, I would say, over-optimistic.
Will never do anything wrong, and he never has done anything wrong.
Watch the video. Checo was sandwiched in the middle. How could it have been his fault?
They sandwiched me. I mean, I think he...
Anyways. But yeah, so it was at the moment that Checo crashed out that Max becomes world champion, which is like a weird...
Very upsetting.
...way to have that happen, where it's not like, oh, you finished this position, you've become the world champion. Like, we knew in the middle of the race, Max could have crashed and still become world champion.
I know, because when I was watching with friends, and I was like, well, what if he crashes? And they were like, it actually doesn't matter. And I was like,
Checo had to win out the rest of the races.
No. Yeah, but like the sprint was fun. It was fun to see Oscar win. We love a non-Red Bull victory.
It was crazy to see such a clear, like, tire strategy play out, where it was like in the first half, anyone on softs was overtaking anybody on mediums, and then almost exactly halfway through, it was a complete swap where the reverse started. That was fascinating. That was fun, and it made it for like good racing.
Yes.
It's fun to watch.
I loved Russell being like, I think we should pit. And they were like, no. No, you need to stay out.
And he finished 4th, which is like decent points for a sprint race. And if he had pitted, he would have been like 15th or something. Maybe not that low.
A
but
wild
still.
card. Fully a wild card. But yeah, I mean, the sprint was interesting too, because it didn't really feel like and sometimes the sprint is just like a mini version of the forthcoming race. And obviously like the McLarens were dominant, the Red Bulls were dominant, but because of the 18th lap tire limit, I felt like the race was its own thing entirely.
Yeah, the 18 lap tire limit was very weird. And I have a lot of mixed feelings about it, because on one hand, it was more interesting to force the drivers to do more pit stops.
Yes.
But on the other hand, it also, in a way, meant that there was less tire strategy, because teams that would naturally extend, like Red Bull and Mercedes, were not able to do that. And so it was just like everybody was on somewhat close to the same strategy because they were forced to. And everybody just had to like use it as best they could, which for most of the teams meant using up their tires because they knew they couldn't go past the 18 lap mark, which I think is part of why the drivers were so insanely
they were
worn
really
out.
like racing the whole time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, also, okay, in the sprint, they did not have an 18 lap limit on the tires. And in fact, some of them, because it was a 19 lap race, and some of them even started on tires that had been used prior.
Used in qualifying. So it was like 22 laps in the end or something like that.
I think maybe Charles started on a tire that had like 5 laps on it already, which I was like, what is happening?
A soft which too, kind of, right?
Yeah. Which I guess makes sense if maybe Ferrari was thinking like, this is going to be a crapshoot. So all of our energy should be on tomorrow. And we want to save as many tires as we can to get the full 18 laps out of them.
Maybe.
Because
I don't know.
When they set like okay, you have to change tires every 18 laps, it benefits Ferrari.
It does. Yeah, it should benefit Ferrari, and it should benefit
still
Haas.
Didn't help him.
I know. Oh. Well, I think that's partially because the other teams that would usually like slow down and extend their tire wear were like, well, we don't have to do that. We can burn through them just like Ferrari would. Yeah. And then just
burn
go faster.
Through them like Ferrari.
Yeah.
I loved Norris getting fastest pit stop in the McLaren. I saw it happen and I was like
the fastest number that ever. Short. That was insane.
I loved it. I mean, they were looking so smooth when you watched both him and Oscar and that 2-second pit stop. It was like, whoa, they didn't even look like they changed the tires. I was like, when did the tire gun go on?
Maybe that was McLaren's secret. They didn't actually change the tires.
Stop. Maybe they have a special like new technology tire gun. Do they all have to use the same tire gun?
I think they bring their own tire gun. I don't think it's standard.
So that's actually brilliant. That could not be what it was, but I wish it was.
Did you see there's a video that's been going on social media of that of the 1.8 pit stop, where then the camera keeps panning and follows a car, and you watch it go past the I think it was the Alfa Romeo garage, and one of the mechanics watches the car goes past and just like, whoa. Like he recognized how fast it was.
Yeah, I mean, they all look fast, but that one, And Oscars, it was like, did the car stop? That's insane.
The next race we go to, I want to see it where we have a view of pit lane.
Oh,
See them go in and out
we
of the
can't
pit.
afford
where
that,
the pit's
Annie.
at. I
We're
told
gonna
you I'm
need
gonna
some
marry a rich
sponsorship.
doctor.
Stop. Yeah, but let's talk about the physicality. Okay, quickly, Carlos is not in the race. What a heartbreak.
Poor Carlos.
I was like, should I even watch this race? And then I was like, yes, for Lando, I will. I'm fully unhinged now. Nice to see that Ferrari's bad no matter who you are. And sent out the wildest Twitter thread or X thread, whatever. That was like, Carlos knows he's number 2. He's getting paid like 1/3 of what Charles is, and he's doing better than him. So if Charles doesn't go, Carlos is leaving.
It was so unhinged. And the person was essentially implying that Carlos doesn't deserve to even be thought of like a number 1 driver. And so therefore, of course, he's going to leave because he's not good enough to be the number 1 driver, and he's not going to be satisfied if he's not the number 1 driver. And
He's
all the
not the
issues at
number one
Ferrari
guy.
are because Carlos Sainz is too big of an ego.
I do have to say, I feel like Carlos seems like he is good at and like enjoys driving a car with a little bit of understeer, or at least maybe he's good at it. Like,
Yeah.
Charles is not.
Mm.
And so obviously Ferrari has not figured out how to make a car that can go fast and has oversteer. So instead they're like, well, we can make it fast and have understeer. And that's definitely benefiting Carlos. But it's still not that fast and still has huge tire issues.
Yeah. Well, and then you also have like Christian Horner at Red Bull saying that like, we don't make the car purposefully oversteery for Max because he likes it. We make the car fast. And to be fast, you need a pointy end. But apparently Ferrari doesn't think the same thing, or Christian Horner is just trying to say that they don't design for Max, even though they clearly do.
Well, and that leads to me to question, like, it seems like Lando has had no trouble getting a handle on the McLaren as it is now. And he's obviously used to driving a car with like an crazy amount of understeer. I think Daniel Ricciardo like spoke to that very explicitly.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I would be curious to know how much that has changed since the Austria upgrades. I would also, I'd be really curious to see Charles drive the old McLaren to see how he handles it, because Charles like clearly likes the like front end fast Ferrari. And I would also be really curious to see Lando drive this current Red Bull.
Me too.
See how he does with that.
I wish there was like post season, like now we let the drivers drive the other cars just to see what it looks like. Just for a little fun, a little Christmas vacation. Like, come on.
That's what we need for our off-season content at Formula One.
Also, like, can you imagine if they really let them do that and then they were allowed to go to their next team and discuss like what it was like driving the other cars.
Mm-hmm.
That's called an open market of ideas, people.
Well,
I was talking to...
I feel like it would also lead a lot of teams to not make driver decisions until they see how everybody does driving the different cars.
See, we should be in charge of the gameplay. No.
Yes.
Essentially, Formula One is like Monopoly. It's a game of capitalism, and we're all playing in it. And Anne and I aim to free the market of the constraints. Yeah, but so what were we talking about? Oh, Carlos is out. The
Mhm.
Ferraris. I don't know. What a wild race. Mercedes take each other out. I did love like George initially being like, what the heck? And then he was like, no, I'm sorry. And then he was like, wait, I saw it on the screen and it was not my fault.
That was so funny.
Wait, okay. This is a vivid memory of mine from the sprint. George passing someone and saying like, good move about himself.
Yeah, I think he said that about passing Checo.
I was like, you need to stop. Is he doing it on purpose? Is he doing it to like razz us?
I have no idea. To me, I think it's just George being George.
It's too much. It's like,
It is a lot.
it's
It
too
is a
much.
lot,
I love it, but it's too much. Okay, so and then I did like, I think Max got told like, hey, wait, don't, like, you need to actually go a little bit faster because Oscar is getting close, but don't wear through the tires. And I was like, what is happening out there? Things are
Yeah.
getting wild. No.
Well, I also think that if the Mercedes had not run into each other at the beginning, they would have had an actual shot of beating Max.
But they
It's
can
not the-
they're really giving brothers energy. The brothers are fighting, but it's like they love each other, but they're also like they cannot stop getting their elbows out.
Mhm.
I also thought it was a really interesting at the end of the race that McLaren was like, do not race each other. Just thinking about Imola. Was that Imola? No. Monza. The
Monza.
Temple of Speed.
Mhm.
When Ferrari was like, you can race. And you're like, Ferrari, aren't these points like wildly important to you? And Ferrari's like, no. Who cares about the constructors? Let's have a race. And McLaren's like, no, we actually need the money. Maybe that's actually what it is that McLaren is like, no, we need the money. And Ferrari's like, well, we could get more wind tunnel time if we did worse.
It feels like Ferrari, every time you think they're going to make the safe choice, makes the crazy choice. And every time you think they need to make the brave choice, they play it too safe.
Yeah. They're I think my favorite hot take, like post, was it you or someone else who sent me like all these people? Oh, I think I just found it on Tumblr. It was people talking about Carlos after his win in Singapore, and they were posting threads from Reddit, and people were like, when he retires from racing, Ferrari should give him a job as a strategist.
I mean, they should.
Their strategy is disaster zone. So then I was like, they're not gonna let him fight, but that felt like a very McLaren decision. And I feel so bad for Norris that he multiple times has been told like, don't fight with your teammate when there was like a true win on the line.
Yeah, he was the faster car in Monza when Danny won. Which it makes sense.
And I think there's like potential that he could have passed Oscar.
Yeah. Do you mean in the sprint or in the race?
In the race.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, he was further behind in the sprint. But yeah, no, I 100% agree. Yeah. But not that Oscar wasn't driving a good race or that he didn't deserve to get second place, but
no.
Yeah.
But it was giving like very similar energy to Monza.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos and that was for third too. Carlos and Charles, and they're like, yeah, you guys can race, and they're like about to take each other
Monza.
out. Yeah, insane. Can you imagine the riots if they would have crashed?
And imagine how many times them crashing would have been used on Drive to Survive. I swear they show it. They show the Max and Danny crash every year on Drive to Survive.
Stop.
No,
I think that they're gonna be showing the Mercedes one this year from this race.
Oh, well, yeah. And now they had the perfect clip of Lewis walking across the track with George coming
yeah.
on.
Obsessed. But let's talk about the physicality of this race because it was insane. Let's run through a list of crazy things that happened from the heat.
Well, I also felt like felt very crazy because when you were watching the race, besides seeing a couple drivers like try and cool themselves off with a little air, you didn't realize how bad it was.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's hot, but there's something about Singapore where it looked hotter.
Yeah.
Even though it was hotter in Qatar.
Right. And it's hard to
hotter and higher humidity, I think.
And it was hard to know how to read Logan deciding not to keep racing.
I know. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, that felt very weird. And I think probably for the people who were actually at the race, it made more sense to them because they were physically in the environment experiencing probably 95 degrees and super humid. Like that's crazy hot.
97 degrees.
Yeah.
No. So let's go through. Come to find out, Esteban has thrown up in his car between lap 15 and 17.
Nightmare.
He was like, I didn't tell you. Which honestly, I know it sounds insane, but I can understand that if you were like, I need to finish this race and I can't talk because I just threw up. I think you would just be like, I just
gotta deal with this.
Okay, so Esteban's throwing up.
Esteban.
Logan retires like 3/4 of the way through the race, which that was heartbreaking. I felt so bad for him, but he looked like he was going to pass out. I wonder about that too, because I'm like, I feel like Lance Stroll should have retired. Like he was like, oh, the reason I had so many
track limits
track limits was because I was
in the corners.
Yes, it's so unhinged. That's like, well, you should stop then because actually that's dangerous for everyone involved.
Amen.
I get that no one is actually going to do that except for Logan, but like I have a bad habit of like fainting or getting very close to fainting when I'm assisting on C-sections. And the number one thing they teach you is just say it because it's worse to faint into an open person, like into a
say it, know your body. Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I was initially like Logan, but then I was like, you know what? Big props to Logan Sargent for knowing his limits and being safe. I felt so bad for him. I honestly feel like he's having like a string of bad luck. So maybe I'm like a Mick Schumacher like style girly because I feel like those two are having very parallel runs. Do you know what I mean? Like it feels similar.
I feel like to me it feels different simply because Gunther never really had that much sympathy for Mick. Whereas James Vowles, like the first time that Logan said on the radio, like, I'm not feeling good. I don't know if I can keep doing this. He immediately was like, just come in. We need to make sure that you're okay. Like,
I like James Vowles a lot.
I hope
James
he gets some
so
play
much on Drive to Survive this season because he seems lovely.
He's
giving big
turning
Toto
me
Wolff
into a Williams
energy.
fan.
Yeah, I think he is the future Toto Wolff. And I hope that him and Albon stick together and like create a championship winning team. That's the dream.
He's Toto Wolff with the like science engineer nerd aspect to him.
I love it. Does he have a wife? No. Because that would be a great way for us to get a view of the pit lane.
Become best friends with Alex and Lily.
Yeah, I mean,
and Checo when he goes to drive for Williams.
Stop it.
I'm kind of convinced this is going to happen, but I also was convinced that Checo was going to win the Drivers' Championship. So
yeah, so you may not have the clearest vision on this.
Don't have the best track record.
Stop. So, okay, sorry. So Esteban threw up. Lance. Logan had to disqualify himself from the race. Lance said he was passing out in the corners, and he
And
immediately
immediately
had to go to an ambulance that he like fell into. Albon needed help getting out of the car,
and
and
immediately took
also
himself to the
had to
medical
go
tent.
to the medical tent. I feel like Lando or Charles, multiple people passed out in the medical tent, which is just like what was happening
Crazy.
in Unhinged.
Nico Hulkenberg.
Norris and George were doing like the visor open and like dangling their hands out. Fernando Alonso asked that a bucket of water be thrown at him during a pit stop. And I love that the team, and honestly, in reflection, because I saw a meme about this where they were showing like what they were doing in the 50s when they would chuck a bucket at them. And I was like, was he literally making a meme while he was driving? Because it can't have been that hot then. But it feels like he might have been. Like he was like, this is a good joke. And then the team was like, we'll see what we're able to do. Like, what? And then he said he burned his butt, which, okay, what happened to Hulkenberg?
He like went into the media tent and answered like
He
2
had to leave
questions
after
and then had to leave to go sit down because he was feeling like faint and feeling awful.
And then Oscar and Max both laid down on the floor. Honestly, they looked fine, but I saw people really citing that like they had to lay down, and I was like, I think that might just be Oscar's energy in general.
Like, I will say it was one of my favorite cool down rooms of the year.
It was very good. It felt like there were no inhibitions.
Yes. And we'll just like, I mean, Oscar went in first, and him just like laying himself out on the ground just set the tone for like, we're just gonna do whatever the heck we need to, right?
Yes.
And the moment when he turned himself around on the ground to watch the TV, and the TV immediately turns off, he was just like, I wanted to watch the TV.
Also, though, okay, when Oscar won the sprint and he was just like, pretty good. Like he was just like nodding, and you were like, yeah, I mean, big deal, dude. And he was like, it's pretty nice. And I was watching with friends, and one of them watches F1, and I was like, he's so low key. And he was like, no, he would be excited if he wins tomorrow. And I was like,
I think he'd be more excited. But I don't know. Like, he's not going to be Pierre Esteban that's like screaming and crying on the radio.
Yeah, I don't even see him. I can see him like standing on the car and like doing a little like, yay. And then being like shaking people's hands. I don't know. It makes me feel really old and disconnected with the youths of today.
It was, that podium of Max, Lando, and Oscar, they're all Gen Z.
That's unhinged. No.
Right? I mean, Max is the
really
oldest, and he just turned 26.
Is that Gen Z? That's right. That's a Gen Z. It's a Gillennial.
I mean, Sarah just turned 27, and she's
a millennial.
So, like, last year of millennials.
Okay.
But isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's wild.
It makes me feel old.
I mean, we're old. No. Yeah, but like the physicality of it seemed way intense, which then I heard some people saying like, well, maybe that was amplified because they were pitting every 18 laps essentially.
I think it was because they were just going all out. They weren't doing any sort of tire saving.
But it also seemed like it was insanely hot. And yeah.
Which it was interesting. they're kind of like different camps on Twitter and social media, where like Will Buxton was saying that like these drivers signed up to be Formula One drivers and they decided that they were going to race in this race.
This is Will's hot take.
Yes. And then there were a lot of people who were on the opposite side, basically be like, but think about how dangerous it would have been if one of them actually passed out in the car and crashed. And yeah.
Yeah, that's all. Think about what would have happened. Isn't there a video with Kimi Räikkönen where Ferrari forgets to put in like his rehydration drink? And he's like, or it's not connected. Imagine if that had happened to one of these guys. Like they would keep driving because they would not. I don't know. I'm really like,
well,
on
some
the
of them
one hand,
just
I
don't
admire that
have
Logan
a drinks
stopped.
bottle ever.
That's
which is crazy.
That
to
cannot
me.
be true for like Singapore. Is that? I don't think you could do that safely, Annie.
I don't know. I thought that was true.
I
but
think
could
the
be mistaken.
amount of drink you get might be variable.
Yeah, for sure.
Neither of us know the answer to that question, but I think you're wrong.
There definitely have been people who are like one thing that's been proposed, maybe the FIA needs some sort of rule change that maybe they would like mandate that the drivers have to have a certain amount of fluid in their drinks bottle.
Yeah,
I actually
think that's like kind of a good idea.
And then it's automatically in their car and the weight is there no matter what. So they're going to drink it. They're not like having less fluid in their drinks bottle to save weight.
Yeah, and I think then you also get into this interesting question of like I feel like I heard someone talking about like Qatar is going to be at a different time, but they're athletes, and it's like, yeah, and isn't the point of the sport to see like who can go the fastest in these cars, and like are these conditions really ideal for getting the fastest drive out of these cars?
Yeah, and I mean, they're racing in Qatar because Qatar is paying a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah.
Is that a good reason to have all of these drivers risk their lives way more than they normally would because of these conditions that they're in?
Yeah, which I hesitate to go too deep into that because I'm like, I like that Formula One races all over the world and like travels to these other places.
100%.
But it's a little
questionable sometimes.
Yeah. And then poor Yuki apparently was also trying to open his visor and then just got sand in his eyes. I'm like,
I
can't catch a break.
Watching any of the driving, I didn't realize how much the track is literally in the desert, built on the sand.
On the sand, and then it's all dyed. Yeah. I liked Lewis Hamilton wore his rainbow. I almost called it a hat. Helmet. But also in a weird way, the track almost has rainbows on it. Like the way the sand is colored, it's very rainbow-esque. Just saying.
Just saying.
Maybe they're like, what? It's a rainbow. Yeah, but overall, I thought it was a really good race. And even though the tire, like the 18-lap thing sort of like leveled the playing field, it also led to so much passing and like overtaking because people were on different tire strategies and then trying to like make up places. And maybe the fights weren't as strong when people were like, yeah, whatever, go on. But it was still fun.
Totally. Do you think that the 18-lap mandated tire length made it more similar to IndyCar? Because I kind of felt like it did.
I heard someone say that.
I mean, it felt almost a little bit more like an IndyCar race.
It did. Yeah. especially when you were just like, wait, where are all of these people in the actual order? Who's going to get points at the end of this?
Yeah.
That felt like IndyCar.
Yes. For real. Well, and I didn't get to watch it live, and so I was like following updates on my phone, and you can't always trust that like the pit stops are updated correctly. And so I was sitting there trying to figure out like, wait, has this person actually stopped 3 times, or have they only stopped 2 times and the app is inaccurate?
Well, let me ask you this, because Alex Albon led. Did he get to count that as like he led a lap of the race? No. What the heck? I was so excited for him.
He went into the pits at the end of it. They should have kept it out one more so he could have
I don't think they were allowed to. I think he had to pit.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But I love the enthusiasm. And if you stayed out past your pit limit, it was like, you're out. No points. DNF.
Black flag. Get out of the race.
Get out of the race. I was honestly, I didn't know what happened. I watched it after though, but I was so worried that Norris was going to get a 5-second penalty after the race was done.
For what?
For track limits, because he had gotten a black and white flag. And then that was quite early on in the race. And I was like, at the end, he was kind of pushing it.
I could not believe how many track limits violations there were between Checo, Lance, and Pierre.
Pierre was the real.
He got 3 added on at the end, I think.
Poor Pierre. And what did Lance say in the interview? He was like, it was such a hard race. I finished 9th in the race. I don't care. Like, he was like, I don't care about the penalties. Real rich boy energy. Oh, yeah. We haven't talked about this, but Lance Stroll was in a bad mood this weekend.
Yeah, man. He was.
Do you think his dad told him like he has to get better or he's not going to get re-signed?
I don't know. I don't know. I think my guess would be that it's more he's feeling frustrated of like, why does Alonso keep showing me up? I look like an idiot.
Well, it is so interesting because I think if his dad literally didn't own the team, you would probably hear people talking about how like Alonso's being favored and Lance isn't getting enough support, or the car is designed around Alonso. And you're like, literally, his dad owns the team. But I also have to say, I feel like Lawrence would be like, I love you, son, but we got to make a fast car.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, it's, in a way, I feel like his response to a question about shoving his, it wasn't his mechanic, it was like his performance coach or someone.
Yes.
It's an interviewer asked him about it the next day. And he's like, oh yeah, we're bros, we're fine. Was such a just like,
it's like you literally employ this person, so it's probably not okay to shove them.
Yes. Thank you. HR violation right there.
HR violation. And it's like, obviously they're all hot-headed. And like, I mean, Max and Esteban like came to blows. Not really, but came very close. And so I don't know. I feel like I went on Tumblr this afternoon because I was like, let me see what the internet, Tumblr's not the internet. Let me see what the Tumblr girlies are saying about the Lance situation.
Mm-hmm.
And first I had to read through like a million accounts of how hot it was. And I finally made it through. And there were a lot of people basically being like, this, what?
That they thought it was hot.
No, not hot, Annie.
I'm
physically hot outside in Qatar.
Oh, God.
Stop it.
It is Tumblr.
That was so hot. Push me around. No.
Anyways, back on track.
So they were talking. First, I had to read a bunch of accounts about how how the temperature was high.
Yes.
But then I finally got to some accounts and there were I mean, obviously like Tumblr's fangirl, like it's fans and it's fangirls. And so it was a bunch of people being like, he's already getting so bullied by the media, by fans, like he's not treated well. There's a lot of anti-Semitism, like all of this stuff. And I'm just like, I'm not in the toxic spaces of F1. So I think I don't know that I can speak to that. But I do feel like it's okay to say, like, there's a line that's inappropriate to cross. Like, in the same vein that it's like, I don't think it's bullying to say that, like, Max needs to talk about if his father-in-law says some racist stuff about Lewis Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
That's accountability. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not like, I don't know the words I'm looking for.
It's not canceling someone or bullying them.
It's not bullying or cancel culture to ask for accountability for actions that hurt other people.
And it can also, like, both things can be true at the same time, that Lance Stroll may be subject to online harassment that shouldn't be happening,
Yes.
and that's not fair to him. But it can also be true at the same time that he shouldn't be shoving his performance engineer and saying, it's fine, we're friends, whatever. Like, those things can both be true.
That probably comes down to a question of, like, you know, does he need commenters to say, like, that was wrong? I don't know. I'm not going to delve into that. That's way too deep for me. But probably the FIA, which will fine you for touching a freaking car, should say, if you touch your performance coach in anger, you're going to get a fine. Like, you can't have a physical altercation on the track.
Well, and I'm guessing that Max and Esteban got fined for their physical altercation. And also,
I have no idea, but I hope so.
It's also very different where, like, Max and Esteban are equals.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and even like
the performance coach is an employee of Lance Stroll.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely like, it's not a good, it's problematic. I was going to call back to was that in Baku, Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel, and Sebastian Vettel got mad at Lewis Hamilton, and like Lewis maybe sort of brake checked Sebastian, and then Sebastian pulled up alongside him and hit him with his car.
I don't remember this at all.
This is like maybe 2019. I don't know.
Was Seb at Ferrari?
Yeah, Seb was at Ferrari. And or maybe it was earlier than that, 2017. I don't know. But they talked about how like Sebastian was like, I really felt I was in the right. That's why I like checked him with my car. I was so mad. But instead of like, I actually appreciate that you can be like, this is actually a learning moment for us to do better. And I think Seb had talked about how like they talked about it and it allowed them to like become better friends and him to like become a better person. And it's like, that's what we need in our, I'm getting way too deep with this now, but like, that's what we need in our society. Like,
yes,
to actually grow and learn to live and work together. So like, we don't need to cancel Lance Stroll, but we certainly need to be like, everyone should be held accountable for their actions. And we all need to learn to take care of each other. Yeah. We are all living here on this earth that we're going to burn up all the fuel to race cars with. No.
And also recognize the like differences in people's positions. Where like it kind of do you know who the Try Guys are?
Yes. Oh, YouTubers? Are we going to talk about Ned and his
Yes, which affair. In the like video that the other three put out after it all come out, they talked about how like it wasn't just that Ned had an affair. That would have been one thing. That in like his own personal private life. It was he had an affair with someone who was an employee of the company.
Yeah, which that's kind of like Max and Esteban. It's like having an affair with someone outside of work. But Lance Stroll pushing his, and I think those guys really do think like we're friends, but it's like
But they're still an employee.
Yeah. There's a power imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, problematic. Lance Stroll, you really disappointed me because I like to see a guy down and trying his best, but I do not like physical violence. It's not for me.
Agreed. I will say, on a positive note, George Russell was impressive the rest of the race.
Ugh.
He went from the last car up to 4th.
Yeah.
And
did.
Checo started the pit lane, but only ended up 10th.
I know. I was like, wait, also didn't
I
they
think
make
all the
him
penalties-
serve that penalty so he didn't have to start from the pit lane?
No, he had to start from the pit lane because they changed
No,
his
I know
power
that's
unit
not
after the
why he
crash.
did it, but it's like
I know
they can't double up penalties, right? Or can they? What do I know?
the
don't know,
penalty
Wheel.
from the previous race that was done.
I know, but the whole reason why he served it was so that he wouldn't have to serve it in this race.
Yeah,
But he still served he had to start
a
from the pit
different
lane
penalty.
anyway. It's like, well, it's like when they used to be like, he has a 50 grid place penalty. And you're like, well, there's only 20 cars on the grid. So
do they need to start from the pit lane the next race too, and 10th from the race after that?
yeah, that would actually be crazy.
That would be crazy.
What if when they got 5-second penalties, it actually wasn't 5 seconds? It was just like a grid place the next race. And they could accumulate. So we got like a 5-second penalty. That's actually 5 grid places. That would be too harsh.
Yeah, 5 grid places is a lot more than
It's more than 5 seconds. Then they'd really take those penalties seriously.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
It would have been interesting to see without all of those penalties in the midfield where everyone would have ended up. Like,
Yeah,
if Checo hadn't had those penalties,
it was really
would
like,
he have... yeah.
Yeah. Do you think Daniel Ricciardo is going to make it to Coda?
I saw something today that it's still not 100% certain.
I'm worried for him. I think he will physically be there. I don't know that he will physically be racing.
I know.
Did you sucks to get old? No.
Did you see that he went to the Bills game?
Yes, I did.
I'm glad he's having some fun.
Yeah.
But I'm ready for him to rejoin Formula One.
We all are. Maybe he'll rejoin at Red Bull.
I think we need to put some money on these hot takes that Sarah and I are throwing out.
Me? Gamble? You know what we need a prize for is the fantasy Formula One teams.
Yes. Yes, we do.
We need to upgrade that.
I'm just going to say my 2 teams this weekend were Red Bull and McLaren.
I never change mine.
I
I'm a problem
finally
child.
took Checo off.
Wow.
Too much money and doing too poorly.
Yeah, fair enough.
No.
I think Norris I have on one or both of my teams, and so that's helping me.
That helps.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, should I give an update of where we are at with fantasy?
Yeah, give us the lowdown. She's looking it up. She's checking it twice. She's gonna find out who's
not
winning.
Even November, Grace. It's
fantasy.
Just barely October. What are you doing?
Just fill in the dead air.
So I'm in first. SoCal
Rude.
Speed, which is Dad. Right? It's second. Danny Rick FEA. Jamie.
That's Jamie.
Grace's Girlies. Then Le Boys.
Lando and
Sarah's.
Carlos are really helping me out there.
No one escapes Spain.
That's
6.
me too.
And I think Sarah's in between your teams. She's the boys, right?
Yeah, she's the
Yeah.
boys.
Bringing
Poor mom.
up the rear is Ruth's dream team and Ruth's outlier.
Ooh, my team is still like have not historically been doing well, but I just anticipated that McLaren was really going to improve. I went with my morals and my gut, and it's paying
Because
off.
McLaren is really the team you want to support if you have strong morals.
Yeah. What is that for? Why are you looking at me like that?
I think some Danny Rick fans would beg to differ.
That's called business, Annie. And look how it's paying off for them. I was thinking about how at the beginning of the season, I was like, do you think Oscar's wishing he stayed at Alpine? And now I'm like, no, that was definitely the right
Absolutely
choice by
not.
Oscar. Holy moly. There is so much of it that is luck. Because I just watched a video where they were talking about Nico Hulkenberg's F1 career. And he had won like all the junior formulas before he came to Formula One.
He was
And
like
then-
the Lando Norris of his generation.
Yeah. And then just got super unlucky with like what teams he ended up at. And then quickly kind of fell out of favor as he didn't win or get a podium. Even though he's so consistent, he's a good point scorer. I'm happy to see him at Haas.
Oh, yeah. Super happy to see him at Haas. Sure.
Yeah. I hope he's having fun. I hope he enjoys his life. That's more important.
Oscar, that first like testing in that first race, he must have been just like, what happened? What am I doing?
I wonder how much money he is going to get paid for his first season in F1.
That's an interesting question. Rookies don't usually get paid very much.
Yeah, I know.
But
do you think he has a special like caveat in his contract for like if he gets podiums or wins? Or no, that's just for Kimmy.
Well, bonuses.
A little bonus. Little. But yeah. Well, they probably can't pay him much because they're still paying Daniel Ricciardo.
Well, he did renegotiate. So they're probably shelling out a little more. He signed up.
But okay. Anything else we need to say? Have we said it all?
The only thing I'll add is that the Beezus Family Bake Off Formula One theme is fully set in motion.
Go.
So near the end of October, you can look forward to some Instagram content of Formula One bakes.
From the Bake Off.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Well,
Fabulous.
thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you in a couple weeks in Austin. Coda.
Woo!
Maybe we'll get some
Daniel Ricciardo's home
horsey
race.
McHorse.
No. Yeah. Some good PR content, hopefully.
Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you later.
Send us an email.
Bye.
Bye.